Oi, oi, weekend preview, but I have the main man, Daryl Carter. We're going to go through some of the action for the weekend, some best bets, because we both fancy a couple in here. There are some serious shorties as well over the weekend, so we'll be obviously looking at the good race. We'll be looking at those, telling you whether we think they're worth worth taking on, take onable. I was going to say one or the other, and I said both. We're also going to talk about Jonbon because we did a video last year. Obviously, it riled Daryl to the heavens. And I think it's worth talking about him just for the fact that on the aftermath of the race, like very much the instant aftermath, there was very much just a blanket statement that was made up by everybody in a concept of it. Maybe just want to address that because time has passed and we can maybe revisit things, see where we're at. There's a few potential pointers towards Cheltenham this weekend as well. So we'll talk about some of those. But without further ado, we'll crack on with some of the horses. First off, Daryl, thank you for joining me. How are you? And are you confident of a winner this weekend?
Oh, yeah, always confident of a winner, mate. Sorry for the state of me. Look at me. I'm rushed off my feet at the moment, but it's all good, mate. Yeah, confident of a couple of winners this weekend. Looking forward to talking about Jonbon. I must admit, I am looking forward to it. It'll be interesting. But yeah, let's crack on.
Beauty. You're looking slimmer as well, even when you did that with your face. It's like you're just wiping it off every time you do.
No, still fat.
I didn't say you were slim. But anyhow, we'll do Saturday's racing because I know people are buzzing about that. We've got Ascot. We'll do Ascot, then we'll do Haydock. We'll talk a bit about Punchestown. Then we'll talk about some Punchestown Sunday. At some point, we'll talk about Jonbon. Right, so at Ascot, I'm pretty much going to skim through race by race just in case you've got an opinion in them. We'll try and be as quick as we can, but we might as well do it in chronological order because it's easier for the people at home, the viewers, to get their pens and papers out. First race is a novices hurdle, 4-runner affair. This was one that I looked at and I wanted to have a bet, basically. I was trying to not necessarily force myself into something, but we need to see how the market's been priced up. Only the 4 runners, but I like John Joe O'Neill's Are You Wise to That? I think of all the efforts that have come out from these horses on like their limited number of starts, he was the one that caught my eye the most. Don't think the rest of them are up to much. I know Scarface is obviously that second season novice, which I normally like cream all over at this point in the season. The race at Plumpton was just so poor, and I don't think he's that much of a worldy horse. I'm hoping he's going to make up the market. I'm hoping I can get maybe sort of 5-2, 3-1 on this. Are You Wise to That? If it is, I'll back it. Other than that, that's the race covered basically. Do you like anything in it?
No real strong opinion, mate. I do agree with you on Are You Wise to That? Just jumping out to the left worries me in terms of a bet. So I thought I'd just sit back and watch that one, mate.
Okay, well, something to make you feel better about him jumping out to the left. It is round Ascot. Half brother to Did They Leave You Out Too? And he won a listed bumper there. So, oh yeah, they don't have to jump in a bumper, do they? Anyway, there's course form. Course form's already in the book. Novice is limited handicap chase after this. Cheltenham comes back from a couple of years, puts everything else in the handicap out of it, which is absurd. You've got to trust, obviously, like merit and like fitness, all those sort of things. But I was fairly surprised when I looked at the market. He's 5-2. They've made the next 2 in that's only got £1 between them, so they're out the handicap, only £1 between them. 13-8 joint favourites. Did you look at it? Was anything that like you had a thought on it?
No thoughts at all, Dave.
All right, because I'm borderline genuinely going to keep a look at the markets for Cheltenham because I think he's overpriced. I know he's got the 2-year.
He shouldn't be. It's not shorter than 5-2, is he?
No, but yeah, I just because he puts the other ones out of handicap. I know you don't care about weight, but like he's 143 rated over fences. He is like on his day he was a 150s hurdler, and if you consider the £7 that he's chucked them out of there, in theory, I know this is very loose theory, but he's got to run to 136. Over fences.
But in theory, his day was 707 days ago, wasn't it? So.
True, but I will just keep an eye on the markets with him because I think he's too big a price, and if I start seeing some like confidence behind him, I'll have a little look. Anywho, we'll talk about stuff we don't really need to talk about. Mayor's handicap hurdle, I'm not even going to ask you. We can get stuck into the first shorty price race. We've got the Chanel Farmer Grade 2. The Hitman's in here, but potentially going to run at Haydock, or we think he almost definitely will run at Haydock. That's going to reduce L'Homme Presse's price a little bit more because there'll be a Rule 4 applied to it. He's 4-7 at the moment, L'Homme Presse. Do Your Job's in there. Call Cody, St. Calvados. I think Do Your Job is supposed to run today. So I don't know if he has or he hasn't. I can't remember what time it is. But does anything beat L'Homme Presse? Is there any point even talking about it?
I don't think anything beats him. They keep saying that he's going to come on for the run. Oh, do you know what? All I keep hearing is people saying that Venetia Williams is something like 0 for 23 in the last 14 days. Christ, how many RSA winners has she had run in the last to 20 days. You know what I mean? How many 160 plus horses has she had running? It just annoys the hell out of me. It makes absolutely no difference. Look, he probably wants softer ground. He's won fresh before, albeit at a lower grade. He's taken on St. Calvados, who's now with David Maxwell. Hitman will come out. Do Your Job will come out. Cool Cody, I suspect, will just be left behind. I don't think he'll even have the pace to sort of make this. I think it'll turn into a bit of a match. It'll be interesting to see what the prices are coming off when those two come out and see what the market thinks of the match between Lompress and St. Calvados. St. Calvados has got a good record fresh, and let's not forget he was rated higher than this 161. I know he's going to give away £3, but he's got a good record fresh. Just worries me that he bled at Ascot the last time he ran here. So look, it's not a race for me to get involved. I could see Lompress when the market reshuffle was going off at 1-3, 1-4, probably rightly so, given the progression he's got. But we'll see what the market does. But St. Calvados not one to just write off. But I think Lompress should be winning this, really.
Fair enough. Yeah, I remember that race when he bled here, because that was where Fakir Dude was an absolute stealer price, and every man on his dog tipped up St. Calvados and backed him. I think even Kevin Blake did. Still went off Fakir Dude, which didn't, and then started back in St. Calvados. Nuts. But yeah,
I remember that day. Fakir was the only bet that I won that day. I felt like he scraped time and all.
No, it was fortunate when 9-4. Was it 2 for Goldie beat maybe? But anyway, good race. Lompress will win. Again, we'll talk about the shorties. There might be something to take it on with. Coral Hurdle after this. Constitution Hill. Definitely worth saying that. Look at the weather forecast and the fact that it's windy. Ground is going to be drying out. Nicky Henderson said at the Gallop this morning that if there's any good on the race course, he's not going to run Constitution Hill. Obviously, there are other options after. There is the fight in fifth where he could split him and Eberton, because that's the only real challenger he's got in this division. Christmas Hurdle coming up. So there are potential options for him to swerve this race. And I would say, look at the forecast. There is a chance that he wouldn't run. So I know people will be like, oh, he's just being a pussy and not running him or whatever. But fuck it, he can do what he wants, can't he? He's got the highest rated novice ever, like the highest rated hurdler in training. If he wants to mind him for a couple of weeks, he can. Let's suppose that he does run, though. Just literally just bolts up.
Oh, yeah. How far? He should be in a different parish to these. Absolute different parish. My goodness me. You want to have a look at distance bets and take as much as you can. Goodness
Fair
me.
Enough. So if
he's on the bridle.
Do you think with the weather stuff, like I don't know how much I read into it and those sorts of things, like what's your gut feeling? Do you think he'll run?
No, I don't think he'll run. I think Nicky Henderson will walk the course in the morning. I just had the feeling all week, every time I've seen the clerk reporting from the course, that they've been desperate to try and say how much rain they've had, or we've had a bit of soft in it, and then today I see him say, oh, there is a bit of good getting into it. I mean, they're not due any more rain. I can see by race times it'll be good, soft, good in places or something like that, or maybe good all over. And I don't think he'll run it. Look, in my opinion, I think I know he doesn't want to bottom him out, but it's bloody good ground. It's not good to firm ground. Do you know what I mean? His action doesn't suggest he wants deep ground. I know last year a lot of people were saying, he won a Tolworth on heavy. He needs deep ground. It's nonsense. He's just a very good horse. I mean, I think it's pulling straw. Whatever the saying is, but. Look, he's a very good horse, and he can mind him if he wants. Nothing to do with me, is it really? But
no, exactly. So let people get wound up. What I would say is, for those of you that are going to get wound up, and those of you that think he might go out, I like to just look at money and different ways of doing things. In the betting without Constitution Hill market at the moment, I looked at Bet365 and Betfair, because Betfair are 9-1 Goshen and maybe 11-2 or 4-1 Brewing Up a Storm or something like that. And then Bet365 is shorter Goshen and a little bit bigger Brewing Up a Storm. But if you're betting without Constitution Hill, so if we hypothetically imagine that he comes out, it's 11-8 Goshen, and then it's either 8-11 or 4-7 Brewing Up a Storm, depending which booker you bet with. If Constitution Hill does come out, and there was a rule fall applied at the price that he is now at 2-7, Goshen would be 9-4 if you manage to back him at 9-1, and Brewing Up a Storm would be 11-10 if you manage to back him at the 11-2-ish price that he is. So it's just worth thinking in there that, like, if you did think that Constitution Hill is going to come out, when that market gets revised, Goshen would not be a 9-4 poke, and Brewing Up a Storm would probably be a shade of odds on. So I think there's not much juice in Brewing Up a Storm against him, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to stick some money up on the exchanges to back Goshen at 10s, and on the off chance that Constitution Hill comes up, because I think I'll have some value, I could trade it back. But it's a bit fannying about, isn't it?
That's interesting. It's a good way to play.
Yeah, semi-interesting. And Goshen, to be fair, Goshen looks like shit in that novice chase thing. He'd probably get done. But I just thought that Lingford one, he'd batter him. But never mind. I just thought we'd cover it in case Constitution Hill doesn't run. Basically, have your lot on Goshen. Then we've got a pretty boring handicap chase after it. Just got last year's Arkle winner in here, running off 161 against a couple of horses that people do get excited about. Do you fancy anything in here?
Yeah, I fancy Edward Stone. I fancy Edward Stone quite strongly, and you bloody know that, and you can't wait to tear it apart. But I genuinely think he should be a 13-8 shot here. Now, people are going to say you're mad because he's running off 161. I don't care about that. That doesn't bother me that he's running off whatever number is next to his name. It really doesn't. Unless that number is reduced so that they can drop in grade or they're forced up in grade, that's when I care about it. This is a drop into a handicap for Edward Stone. Top weights in handicaps have been doing really well this season. And the reason is because it's not because they're carrying top weight or they're struggling to give away weight. It's because of their high cruising speed that they have. They have the ability to run at a faster, a quicker stride rate than any other handicapping horse. Now, I know you're going to say, well, there's improving horses in here, and that's very true. There are improving horses in it, but nothing in this field has ever run as fast as Edward Stone has. So, for me, I don't want to overcomplicate. I've seen so many people overcomplicating this race, saying, "Oh, it's an afterthought because he was going to go to the Schlern, but the ground was wrong." I don't think it was an afterthought so much as it was Plan B. When I was at Wincanton, I heard Alan King saying to someone that the reason Frodon won the Badger Beers is because they just couldn't go the gallop. The handicappers in behind couldn't go the gallop. It's not about the weight they give away. It's about the cruising speed, how quickly a horse can run, essentially. Now, Edward Stone's not going to be making the run in here, but they do tend to go a good gallop in a 2-mile race, and I don't see any reason why he won't jump and gallop and show what he showed last season. I think he's remarkably consistent. He consistently runs up to 160. He's got a good record fresh. He's unbeaten right-handed. If you're going to go anywhere for a handicap with him, it has to be here, doesn't it? You agree with that or not? I know you don't agree with it because you think.
Oh no, I do agree with it. To be fair, I'm like he's already been nibbled in from Sky Bet from 3s into 11 to 4, so he's 11 to 4 top prize now. Yeah, no, I do agree with it. The only difference is I don't think he should be like a 13 to 8 poke. I think he probably should be about 5 to 2 poke. So that's the only way there's a difference in there. The thing as well is if the ground is drying up, didn't run at Cheltenham because the ground was dry. Who's to say that Alan King doesn't pull him again? But that's by the by. Episode, I'm in agreement with you. If there's a bet in the race, it's him. I wouldn't be as bullish as you are, but you like him, didn't you?
I do like him. Yeah, I do like him. I like Boot Hill as well. But the thing with Boot Hill, like I said to you earlier, is like I would like to have seen them if he's that good. If he's that good, see them go down the novice route, and look at the Arkle at the festival later on down the line. But I know this is a 65 grand race, but I don't like it when novices do that and they go into open company very early on in their career.
But it's worth
so that puts me off.
It is worth a few quid this race. We did talk about the prize money for it, didn't we? The only thing, again, like I loosely touched on the episode of the ground, is Harry Fry will not run Boot Hill if the ground's too firm. He pulled him out of Newbury last year. So that's another thing to consider, that you take Boot Hill out the race. I know there'll be a Rule 4 applied to it, but you're always better to back him before the Rule 4 than after. Edward Stone probably will go off as a 6 to 4, 13 to 8 point, won't he?
Probably, and I'll be proven right again.
Exactly. Always right.
Right. I'll tell you the potential of who could go off very short is this So Scottish for Emmett Mullins. He looks a very progressive horse. He's a nice horse. We know the yard like a gamble, that you could see him shortening up. He's only a 5-year-old. He could have loads more to come, but they've got to get to Edward Stone's level. I just don't think they're quick enough, and that's the bottom line really for me.
Yeah, well, we'll soon find out tomorrow, won't we? Edward Stone will definitely be thereabouts. Like he's either going to win it or he'll be there within a couple of lengths. My only semi-concern is Ascot fences. There's lots of them, and some horses can stickle at them, can't he? Edward Stone was a second season novice last year when he had no progression, but he's fair. I'm not knocking him. It's just the price thing, isn't it? We're always price sensitive, but that's the difference, isn't it? Everyone's got their own entry points and exit points. Let's move on to Haydock so we can get on to fucking Jonbon. Not fucking him, because that's the opposite of what we're doing. But Haydock's soft at the minute. There's more rain coming. It's beautiful, isn't it? I genuinely don't understand how Haydock attracts so much pissing rain every time they've got a fixture. Like sometimes it's like nice racing ground, but anyway, it is what it is. I'm going to skim through them just in race order. There's not too many that I'm going to get too stuck into, to be honest with you. Aaron, that we chat to a bit, reminded me that I do like these older, high-rated novice hurdlers in these types of races. And he said, "Am I back in size in Potsy tomorrow?" I won't be back in size in Potsy tomorrow. I thought the David Cross horse in that Tamaras ran pretty well. My concern would be don't know about him on sloppy ground, so wouldn't be a race I'll be getting excited in. Is there anything you're interested in that novice hurdle?
I was interested in Sides and Potsy. Yeah, Snake Roll is another interesting one for Lucinda Russell. They're both going to go off like a bullet from a gun. I would expect. I'd be surprised if Tamuras ran in deep ground here. If he does, I'd be surprised if he won. He did look very, very nice, though, didn't he? But no strong opinion, mate. No. Let's move on.
Fair enough. We'll see with that Tamuras as well, because it is. I don't want to be like rude to it, because it is part of a syndicate and it's a big day out at Betfair. I mean, they can still have their owners' day stuff if they put it out after 11:30. I think it is. Not saying they're not going to do the best interest of the horse, but if you've got a 7-4 favourite for a listed novice hurdle and it's like a syndicate horse, it must make your decision a lot harder to put it out, because it's more the sort of social aspects. And I guess you get to answer the question after, didn't you? But I'd be mindful of that for people that are looking at backing him, because he was impressive the last day. There's enough sort of worries and negatives about him at the price. And normally I'd say a trainer would withdraw their horse if the ground was too much of a concern. I'd be less inclined to say that would be true of Tamuras. There's a handicap chase after this. Not interested?
Bitchy. Handicap chase after this. Yes, I do like one in there. This is betting.betfair sponsor this website, so I've done a tip on the betting.betfair website for it. They've asked me to do, so go and check that out. I like the favourite, Would You Be Well, for Emma Lavelle. Completely unexposed, great record fresh, loves soft ground, is improving. 6 of the last 10 have gone to second season chasers. Lots of boxes ticked for Would You Be Well of Emma Lavelle. She's got a good bit of course form as well. A decent third against the boys here when staying on over 2 miles 5. Step up trip should go well. 5-2 is fair.
Okay, I'm going to go back at you. So I didn't even talk to you about this before we did it, but I knew I'd be able to lure you into some sort of recording. There's one here. There's one here that I think
it's going to be proper poutine, isn't it?
This is the beauty of it. It's so under the radar. I've not mentioned this horse at all. That you won't be able to pick it, but as soon as I do mention it, I think it's going to make you revise your thoughts slightly, but maybe it won't. Do you remember I said to you in the mould of Karat's Rambler, the horse that ran at Aintree, and it was a prize? I said it's obviously a bit punty, and then when it ran on the day, you did say ran quite well. To be fair,
yeah, your own story.
And it's gone up. It's only gone up £1 for that. And I'm not saying it was like the deepest races or anything, but I thought it was ran well enough. It's entitled to come on for the run and improve for it. And I do think the slot will suit. And obviously we know like Aintree, Haydock, the fact they're flat and go around to the sides could be similar. This is a 3.5 miler as well, like an absolute slogfest. And it's a novice chaser that's having its second start over it. I reckon this is just all stamina, this horse. He's 5-1 poke. I will be having a reasonable scummy each way bet on that, because I cannot see him not being in the first 3, and I reckon it's got a proper chance of winning it. So I normally like to get stuck into the place market. I genuinely think this will win.
All right, I don't think it will. I don't think it's got the experience, but let's go.
Not too late to rewrite your column, is it? It's like you said though, with these novices that end up going in like proper company stuff. He's doing it out here. Like it's just there will be no novice chasers for like a 3.5 mile or there. Anywho, we'll see about it. But I'm going to have a little go on him. So there you go, viewers. A little bet for you. Betfair handicap hurdle after this. Only reason I want to talk about it is because of Le Decid. You looked at him?
No, yeah, not really. I wasn't that impressed, and then they put him in at 13 to 8. I don't know really. I couldn't work out really what price he should be, so therefore I couldn't work out the value on anything else. So therefore I just moved on. It was giving me a headache.
Fair enough. So the reason it'll be short is again the French rating stuff. Like the Gaelic Warrior stuff, where his mark would be different on the revised ratings. In theory, like if I did a bit of a piece on this, the same as Gaelic Warrior, like this horse potentially would be. I don't know. I don't know, because I'm having to do it quick off the top of my head. I could work up the numbers properly, so don't quote me this, but I would imagine that he'd be £10 well in.
Yeah.
Just as a quick glance now. So that'll be the reason why, again, we mentioned it with handicappers, like with Edwardstone potentially being a 13 to 8 poke. And I say to you, like 5 to 2 tens from the bottom line in a handicap, unless you get ones like this that are in theory, you can work out a reason why they may be like half a stone, £10 well in. That's the reason he's the price that he is, and he may well go and dot up, but
maybe. But the issue is Haydock is horses either take to Haydock or they don't. And
absolutely,
there's a couple of course winners in here who return to Haydock who are fairly handicapped. Do you know what I mean? It just for me, it was just a bit of a mess to really try and, even regardless of that £10, to try and put a price on him, I thought was too difficult with do you know what I mean? With the factors of the others in the race. So I left it. So move on, mate.
Yeah. Exactly that. And it's just on that last bit on the price bit there. Like with Gaelic Warrior went off at 6-4 in the Fred Winter. The only reason why I made such a big thing about it before is because he was a 7-2 poke. The price was wrong. If this Lur de Sid was a 7-2 poke, I'd be telling every man and their dog to back him because it's the wrong price. At the price that he is now, you leave him alone at that. Let them go and win if they want to go and win. Graduation Chase after this is another one of the we'll talk about where there's these short priced horses that are going to go and do bits. Hitman's in it. I like Hitman. I think he's a pretty good horse. Lots of the old 2s and 3s next to his name, so it does become a point where you start to wonder what he's really doing. But I went through all of them to see if I could find holes to pick in any of them. He probably was one of my ones that I had less of a concern about. So I think Hitman will win. But you don't, do you, Daryl Carter of betting.betfair.com?
It's not that I don't think he'll win. It's just that I like Earn River, and Earn River had Balilla Drama beaten a point. Earn River was progressive last year. I fancied him for the Grade 1 at Aintree. He was making a move and he came down. I'd like the run off at Sandown. He wants a left-handed track. He jumps and hangs slightly to the left. He wants a slog in the mud. He's got a good record fresh. There was just lots of positives in his favour. And when I'm looking at Hitman, I'm sort of thinking, well, this is the longest trip he's ever run over. This is going to be deep ground. I know this is a big drop in class. He's well off at the weights, etc. Or he's well off at the weights, etc. But I don't know. I just don't trust him. Like you say, I think he's out battled a lot of the time in a finish, and that for me worries me. And I've never really thought of him, going up in trip to bring out further improvement. Really, I just think he is what he is. So, and whether that's good enough to beat these, it may well be. But I'm happy to take him on at around 7-1 with Earn River.
Fair enough. And we always say that you can't be scared of one horse, can you? But Hitman will win it. And it's like they're short in there. You're putting something up at a reasonable price. I don't mind it. Also, it's one of them as well, again, from the muggy betting perspective, that he could be one of those that you could back pre-race and within in running, maybe after a couple of flights, so he might already trade a few points shorter, so you could play a relatively lower risk. And again, they might be betting without the favourite markets in those, so potentially have a look at them, but that's not how Daryl's tipped it. Anyway, Stairs handicap hurdle, Premier handicap after this one. This is actually typically a pretty good race. I tipped up Gentleman at Arms at Aintree, and I was fuming that he got beat by Jelena Bello, to be honest with you, because maybe bumped into one. The step up in trip, I think, was like key to him. And I just mentioned before about Aintree and Haydock being similar-ishy tracks. Definitely looked like a prep run at Aintree at the beginning of October, because I semi-fancied him, but he drifted like a barge. I'm not saying the yard are big gamblers, but I talked to you about Stuart Edmonds, where I tend to find that he has a lot of his horses finishing second and third. They go up in the weights and they penalise themselves for it. I think 25-1 about him is way, way, way too big. But he would be very much like, I don't think he'd be winning off his marker 143. I think he'll run well. So because of that, I can't lure myself into want to back anything. I know Run for Oscar's in here for Charlie Burns, so surely he's just going to have all the money in the world on it. Is that what you fancy?
No, I kind of thought he was in there propping up the market, really. I thought you might see him getting a bit of a run out the back of the field, really, to try and drop that handicap mark for later on down the line. I could be completely wrong. He could just go and dot up because it is a 70 grand race. But I don't know. I think there's bigger plans with this horse down the line than Haydock today. I like Mike Eye. I think I know a lot of people like him, but I think he's got more to come going up in trip. I think first time out's a good time to catch him, and I think in a slog in the mud is what he wants. The thing with this horse is he always travels well through his races, or he has done, and he just can't match the finishing speed of some of the decent novices of last season. It was the same at Sandown when he was against Constitution Hill. He travelled lovely through the race, just couldn't match Constitution Hill at the back of the last. Same happened at Free Stripe Life at Aintree, and the same was sort of happening to Jonbon when he was sort of hampered here at Haydock in the finish. So I just think the step up and trip could see a lot further improvement from him. I do like the muddling novice form from last year in places. I think it's working out quite well. And yeah, I think 92's fair price, really. He's well found in the market, don't get me wrong, but I do feel like today could be his big day. So I'm happy to side with him, mate. I thought Good Risk at All was interesting as well, but it just worries me that race at Carlisle on return just might leave a mark. Last year when he ran at Ascot, he bolted up by 9 lengths. He went to Aintree and ran no sort of race. And I just think that he needs time between his races. So 20 days just might have took it a bit off him. So I think I just might have the edge.
I like it. It's worth saying as well with this one that it is 14 runners in the race, but you do get extended places in here. William Hill do some filthy extended places.
Whoa!
They're doing, yeah, I know. Well,
no.
Betfair are great because they're going an extra place. They're going 4 places, a fifth of the odd, but William Hill's a fifth of the odds, 5 places. So again, from like a scummy each way, protecting yourself sort of bet, you can't see Might Eye outside the first 5. You get 4 to 1 each way, that sort of bet. They're the ones, I guess, if you did fancy Might Eye, you're looking when you
get a bet on.
True, mate. The terminals in the shops though, when they put that concession on for the next morning, you can get a couple of the terminals.
Let's just leave that. All right.
Right. You have mentioned Jonbon, but we just need to at least cover one more race before we do that. We haven't even gone over and looked at Ireland, but the Lancashire Chase, we call it the Betfair Chase. It's like a Plutard's just going to win, isn't it? If we again, there's like almost no point talking about it other than the fact that the Plutard wins. But let's devil's advocate it. A Plutard, for whatever reason, bombs, makes a massive mistake, makes a howler of it. Who is the most likely horse to take full advantage of it, do you think?
I don't know. Protectorate, I think, is going to be absolutely wound up for today. Like, I think this is probably going to be his Gold Cup, if that's stupid saying. But I think he'll be absolutely fully wound up for this. Whereas this is kind of an afterthought for the likes of Eldorado, Allen, and Frodon. Although it annoyed me last year. I thought Eldorado Allen should have stayed over 3 miles. And I don't think he'll mind a bit of cut or deep ground. He's a half brother to Auvergnat. You know, the horse that won the cross country over 4 miles. Yeah. I think he can stay. I think he's been outpaced over 2.5 quite often. I can see this race setting out. So I can see Frodon going off pretty hard. I can see Bristol de Mai going off hard. And I can see Eldorado Allen just ridden right out the back, ridden cold, just try and pick up some pieces if it falls apart. It could stay on into a place. And I thought without the favourite market, maybe Eldorado Allen around 9-2 might be the way to go. But again, I wouldn't be confident. I mean, I look at a Plutard really at 4-7 and think it should be a 1-3 shot, don't you?
Yeah,
I know the ground's a slight concern, but
yeah, he'll absolutely bolt it, wouldn't he? It's interesting with the without markets as well, because you've got such a short price second favourite in Protectorate. There will probably be some bookies that are betting without a Plutard, and there'll probably be some bookies that bet without a Plutard and Protectorate. So it would be interesting off the back of that, given how big Eldorado Allen is. I don't know, Bet365 typically do it with a couple of them out there. So it's a fair point about Eldorado Allen as well, because I remember in Sandown, I think he won a maiden hurdle or something in a slot, and we know Sandown can get pretty schlappy. So yeah, interesting one. I can't Bristol de Mai and Frodon. Neither of them will finish the race. That's a fact, and I'll say that as a fact because it will be. Neither of them will finish.
Yeah, I think it's sentimental. A lot of people side with Bristol de Mai this year, but
fucking idiots, aren't they? Right, but that's that race done. We're going to run out of time on the recording. We want to cover Jonbon, don't we? Do you like anything in the handicap chase after?
No.
Okay, good. I mean, you probably do, but you just want to talk about Jonbon now, didn't you? Let's quickly have a look at Punchestown, but again, it will be very quickly because there's one for Sunday I want to quickly talk about. We've got Kilcrit versus Journey with Me in a beginner's chase over 2.5. Kilcrit's putting his 2s on. Journey with Me is 2-1. Price probably about right?
Don't know. With a horse that spent 2 seasons in bumpers because he couldn't jump hurdles, awfully short for his chase debut, isn't he? I don't know. I'd probably side with Journey with Me at the prices, to be honest.
Man, you're an animal. Then we've got the Craddockstown Novices Chase after, which is quite a nice one. It's a 2-miler. We had Size in Europe a few years ago, won this, then went and won the Arkle. You've got Hallowed Star for the Shark Hanlon at 5-4. Midnight Runner is 72. Midnight Run's a 141 horse. I don't think we've got the Arkle winner in there, so I don't want to waste any more time.
Agree. I think Miles Harper might win though.
Oh, Syndicate horse. Mare's Hurdle, it's got Queensbrook in there. She's going to go win, right? Even though she got beaten favourite last time.
I don't know. I'm not a massive fan of her. I don't really like her as much as everybody else seems to do, but she doesn't seem to be progressing for me. She just sort of runs to the same sort of level. I think Heaven Help Us be hard to catch. She goes off front end.
I agree. So that's an interesting race to watch because that is very much fully a match. And then there's a bumper, but there's an okayish one. We'll quickly just do Sunday at Punchestown because it's worth talking about 2 races there. I want to talk about the Florida Pearl Novices Chase before we talk about the Morgiana because I touched on this in the, I think it's in the GG column and in the anti-post video I did the other day, that Manila Crooner was 25-1 for the National Hunt Chase. Gordon Elliott's talked about that being a target race for him. He's starting here in Grade 2 company. He could have got in that Kilcrit Journey with Me race. I think he's a proper horse. They have been priced up by Bet365. I'd have always gone in a 6-4 favourite, now 13-8. Manella Crooner was 11-4, now 3-1. You touched on about the Devil's Coachman. What price is he if them two are too short then? He was 6-1, he's now 4-1. But I do think Manella Crooner will win. So I've had some more money on for the National Hunt Chase at 25s because I'm pleased that he started here. And I'm going to back him to win first time up there at 3-1. So that's my thoughts on that. You excited to see that race?
No, I'm excited to see the race afterwards. I mean, in terms of Manella Crooner's second run over fences, I think Devil Coachman's probably going to hit a few here. It annoyed me that they've gone over fences with the Devil's Coachman. I think he should run in the Stayers Hurdle, really. He keeps saying, not me, keeps saying, he's so ground dependent. I don't really. I think it's more trip than ground. He needs deep ground over 2 miles. I don't think he needs deep ground over 3. But anyway, that's another theory. But let's get the Jonbon. Come on.
I know we got to do one more after that. Yeah, Devil's Coachman will definitely clatter all his fences. He'll pull up tomorrow and then he'll go over hurdles. He'll be in the Stayers Hurdle. Morgiana. I know you love State Man. We know what Willie Mullins is going to do in here. He's just going to run horses to set things up. It probably is a match between State Man and Sharjah. How do you see it coming out?
I don't know. I'm intrigued to watch this, actually. I mean, personally, like I said to you before, I was desperate for State Man to go over fences. I thought he would clean up in the novice division. I really did. But they seem to be sticking to the hurdle. I don't think he's good enough to beat Constitution Hill. I don't think I've seen any horse good enough to beat Constitution Hill. And that's the God's honest. But Willie's got to throw his darts. I suspect State Man may win. But he's got a bit to do. Sharjah is no mug, is he? I don't know. I can't get involved in it, Dave, but I definitely can't wait to watch it. That's for sure.
Fair enough. Well, we're going to move on to Jonbon, but just before that, if it was gun to head and someone said to me, you have to have a bet in the Morgiana Hurdle, I was given a £500 free bet. It would, without hesitation, gone Sharjah. I know, he's had a couple of Grade 1 wins that are pants when you look back at the form, but he is a multiple Grade 1 winner, proven, and he shouldn't be 2-1. It should be maybe 6-4 the pair. You take a bit of a punt. Anywho, Jonbon. We saw his chase debut. We know that I'm going to be blindsided with the fact that I quite like Monmerol. I'll be very quick on this because I will talk about it, how I've viewed it after, in another video later on, just to wrap up the anti-posty stuff. But I thought Monmerol ran okay, to be fair. I wasn't really blown away with Jonbon as much as everyone else was, actually rimming him. I don't think he finished with that much left in the tank. And I talked about his schooling video where I thought he jumped well. I didn't expect him to skew at a couple of his fences. So as much as he jumped nice, and I don't mind novices jumping as they do, he doesn't look like the absolute machine of a possessed horse as I thought he was before. He looked just like a racehorse, which is no bad thing in that, but I just don't think he's going to get away with going that quick a pace against a deeper field when there's more horses to go against him and not have something that's brave enough to sit him behind and pick him up. So 2-1 for the Arkle is an absolute fucking disgrace. He didn't even win the Supreme and he wouldn't have even come second if Dysart stood up. So I think he's a terrible price. Clearly a very nice prospect and clearly better than Monmerol as it stands in the minute, but scandalous, isn't it? You've got 3 minutes and 55 seconds to do your best and breathe.
Right. Well, look, I was very much against him last year, wasn't I? I'm not as against him this year, but it depends what he comes up against. I'm in agreement with you that the early Speedy show was absolutely devastating. I thought it was brilliant. I do think there's a mistake in him for sure. I think he's by far better than Monmerol. I can't have you keep going on about Monmerol. You just look at the stride. He's a quicker horse than Monmerol. He wants to go up and trip. I still didn't fit. I was surprised at the distance where Monmerol and Westcourt finished behind Jonbon, considering that he killed the race in the mid part. I know he came home in a fairly hack canter, you could say, but I just looking at the horse as opposed to the jockey's body language, I didn't think he was as comfortable in the finish as Aidan made it out to look. That would be my point. I would then go back to the point of the Supreme where he went off like a bullet from a gun with Dysart Dynamo, and then coming around the bends when Constitution Hill picked him up very easily, he just emptied. Now, people keep saying he wants to go up and trip. I don't know about that. I think he does too much in the early part of the race, but I also think that's his weapon, if that makes sense. But if he comes up in the Arkle against something that's going to want to go off and take him on like that, I think he could prove vulnerable. Would you rather back him at 2-1, or would you rather back any other runner that could potentially run in the Arkle at 1-2? I know what I would rather. I'd rather have any other runner at 1-2 to win the Arkle. I think it's a fantastic price. Look, He's a good horse. We've got a lot to get into. His finishing speed from 4 out to the finish was the same as the 113 rated horse in the card. Now, I know he's come home easy before everyone gets all excited and starts saying, he come home in a canter. I know that. But we still really haven't seen him finish out that race. You go back to that 8-tree run, El Fabiolo's bit the neck. He was really badly hampered twice in that contest, and he was beaten a neck. I just wonder if El Fabiolo, who only had 2 starts then, has got more to come in terms of progression. I do like Jonbon. I like his attitude, I like his swagger, but for me at the moment, there's a lot more to prove than just beating Bobbin Rao, who was a 33-1 shot at the time of the race at Warwick.
Yeah, fair enough. No, that was good. That was good. I've got a minute left. But that's the thing with it. That's why I put that tweet up on Twitter, and I know like it pissed people off with it. But the concept of putting it up there is some people don't know how to price the market. It's very different. It's all opinions, all that sort of stuff. But if you just use the anti-post prices, Jonbon should have been a 5s on poke. If you forget about the anti-post prices in golf, what they were for the Arco, and just treat that as an isolation race, Jonbon should have been a 4s on shot. Jonbon should have done what he did. And he did sort of what was expected of him as opposed to anything above and beyond. So he should have stayed the 7-2, 4-1 for the Arkle in my mind.
I will just say one thing, that everyone or everyone on Twitter and, you know, people watching racing, everyone wanted Jonbon to do that. And I knew the market was going to sort of overreact, but it's what everyone is pushing for to happen. So the bookmakers are cutting it because everyone wants him to win. So I think if I had to say now, I think people will be disappointed much.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing with it as well is, like, especially just the last, you talk about the Monroe thing. No one's watched it this far, but like the main angles, I'm still not giving up on that one. I know I probably should, but the main angle with the bet was, wasn't it, that Monroe would go against any other horse than Jonbon on a chase debut, would have won. We saw that from the evidence of that race because nothing else would have gone that fast, and he would have shortened up. I don't think he warranted being moved out. The same as I don't think Jonbon warranted being moved in. They should be 4-1, 33 to the Arkle, and let's see him have a go for round 2 in the Henry VIII.
Agreed.
Boom. Well, thank you for your time, mate. Be lucky for the rest of the weekend, and I will speak to you soon.
Cheers, buddy.
Bye.